guy wouldn't run late, Gary.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our New York Giants Preservation Society meeting for tonight, November 19th, with the great Russ Stanley of the San Francisco Giants. Russ is going to be talking about his job and also his great friendship with two of the Giant icons, Willie McCovey and Orlando Cepeda, who are both signed by the New York Giants. Before we turn the program over to Russ, just some housekeeping. There'll be no meeting next week because of Thanksgiving, so everybody happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your holiday. The following week will be a December 3rd meeting with Steve Summers. Steve is a New York legendary radio personality, but he grew up in the Bay Area and was a San Francisco Giant fan. He has a brand new book out about his time at WFAN in New York. At the present time, we have 52 members of our society coming to this party. We can go up to 60. So if you're on the fence, please let me know because I got a feeling we're going to hit that number by next week. So, and that party is December 20th. It's $20. All the money is going for, charities and just to cover the cost of cake and a gift for the owner affinities, etc. One other note, Frank Lewis, who was always on here, and we'd always joke around with Frank. Frank took a spill a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
He's in rehab.
Oh,
I don't think he's coming back to any of these Zooms. So
oh no.
he's not near death's bed or anything like that. He's just having a rough time. So keep him in your thoughts, okay? With that being said, love to turn the program over to one of the really great guys who works for the Giants. Russ has been there forever. He is the senior vice president of and head of ticketing, and he does so many other things for the Giants that you will hear about. But and he's been on some of our Zooms, but never as a speaker. So let's all give it up for Russ Stanley. Russ,
Russ,
the floor is yours.
thank you very much, Gary. Appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy this group, so this will be fun. I'll try to keep it fairly light to get us going, and go through my history and how I ended up here. Jamie, this will be redundant for you, but very quickly go through sort of what I do here, and then open it up to questions. Uh, I started here in 1989, right after about 2 weeks after the earthquake. And I'm responsible for everything that's ticket related here at the ballpark. That includes all the baseball games, playoffs, concerts, any events that we do. We just did a ballpark back nine, a little golfing event in our group tickets. Spring training. So we cover two ballparks from here, and that's ticket sales, client retention, suites, accounting. That's some of the not so fun stuff. Ticket strategy, pricing, secondary market activity that we've got. I'm also responsible for the schedule. I'm the representative for the Giants that helps make the schedule. I wish I could say we have a ton of influence on that, but when it comes to they pretty much the baseball provides us a base schedule, and then we negotiate the times amongst each other. I certainly didn't start doing all that in '89. I started out, they called it telemarketing back then, but now would be the equivalent of inside sales, selling season tickets. And I was very fortunate that the job ended on opening day, but I had befriended the ticket manager or VP of tickets at the time, Arthur Schultz, and he saw something in me. Of the 10 people that were on the sales side, he came to me and said, I want to keep you around in a full-time role, starting with opening day. So, and opening day of '90 is my official full-time start date, which is important for the pension. I was born in San Francisco on Gary Street and moved to Pacifica when I was 2. I went to Terra Nova High School, which Pacifica is just over the hill, very close to San Francisco, 20 minutes outside of San Francisco. And never really went far. Grew up in Pacifica and then eventually went to San Francisco State for college and graduated from there in 88 and got the job here in 89.
Sit on your shoulder so you can relax.
Jonathan, please mute.
See it, do you?
I can't talk.
I'm sorry, Russ.
That's okay. No, I've seen a lot of these.
And you see me shaking my head a lot because
Yeah, no, I get it. Through high school and college, I worked at a theme park locally called Marine World. That was, I worked there 8 years, spent 4 in Redwood City, and then we moved to Vallejo in 86. And so I got a good operational and customer service background that certainly came in handy when Arthur was looking for someone to help manage and ticketing and sort of start taking care of our customers differently. And what's beautiful about Arthur, certainly for this group, is he spent the first couple of years of his career at the Polo Grounds. So he moved out here in 57 when the team, played their first game in 58. But he picked up and moved his family here. So there's some other connections to the Polo Grounds that we'll talk about in a minute. I was not a great athlete. Loved baseball, but couldn't hit a curveball. The coach would probably tell you I couldn't hit a fastball either. So I had to decide it's time to do something else. So while in college, I sort of had to figure out what my future was going to be. And I wanted to obviously do something that I cared about and was passionate about. And somehow I landed this job. And I've been able to make it a career. I've been here starting my 37th season this year. This will be my 37th season. And I think I've just been successful because of people like Arthur. When I first started coming in, he said, "Hey, you seem to like this business, and you seem to know a lot about baseball. Not at the Marty Lurie level, but I knew enough. I had a lot of baseball cards, and I knew who guys like Hank Sauer and Jimmy Davenport were. And so Arthur said, "Hey, if you want to come in every morning at 7:30, I'll teach you something." And not many people get someone that will sacrifice to teach you and bring you up and show you the ropes. So the first day I was standing at his door at 7:15 and he came up about 7:30 and, "Well, I wasn't sure you were going to come." And I said, "No." And then I couldn't wait to get started on that journey. And so he got me going, and every morning we'd meet at 7:30 and we'd talk about the game the night before. Sometimes he would actually teach me something. But in those days, other alumni would stop by. At the time, Bobby Bonds would be playing golf with Davenport, and they would stop on the way to the golf course. So I got a chance to meet those guys and really learn from Arthur on how to treat people and how to work with the alumni. I always listened to Arthur, listened to the alumni. And through the years, I've always just treated people the way I'd like to be treated, or the way I feel like I'd want my parents treated. And I built a career on that and built a team of client relations team in 2000. They started, and it was the first in baseball. Now there's 30 client relations teams, but I'm really proud of that group that we built. Had a lot of influences. I had early mentors at Marine World that sort of pointed me in the right direction, taught me how to have fun, to be a leader and have fun. For some reason, it's 17 years old, I became the water slide manager, and they gave me the keys to the kingdom. I got to run. At the time, it was a small business, $1 million budget. But to be a 17-year-old high school senior, that was a lot of responsibility. And then as we went along, I told you about Arthur, really the hardcore ticketing. It taught me hard tickets. In those days, we printed the whole house. We were just converting to computerized tickets. And I didn't know much about computers, but I was able to sort of help Arthur weave his way through it because he knew nothing about computers, and he was, sort of wrapping up his career, and he knew he'd be retiring in the next 5, 6 years. So I was able to help him through that while he taught me. And I think having a hard ticket background and understanding that tickets have a life, once they're sold, they're not dead. It's a living, breathing until they get scanned at the turnstile. And we don't even have turnstiles anymore; they're scanners. But there were really three people who shaped me once I got to the Giants. Larry Bear, who I think has been on here, and he really taught me to be entrepreneurial. We started a dynamic pricing program a couple of years ago where we change prices based on demand of a game. And that demand changes daily, just like a ticket is alive. The value of a ticket is also can change daily. And we've taken advantage of that in both ways. We've raised prices to take advantage of a Yankee series or Dodger series, but we also lower prices if a visiting team has an injury and they're not as valuable, we can be nimble and price what the market will bear. Pat Gallagher was another one. I think he's also been. All my guys have been on here, but these are the three that I've always looked up to, and I credit them with my career. But Pat saw something. I mean, interestingly enough, I worked for his brother when I was at Marine World. So my 8 years at Marine World, I worked for his brother, Mike Gallagher, and then for 30 or so years, I worked for Pat. So since I was 16, been working for a Gallagher. But he sort of taught me to take risks. We started a secondary market program back in 2000 that a couple guys from Stanford were watching what we were doing, and they started a company called StubHub out of what we put together. They then made $310 million selling it to eBay, and I think they're probably drinking out of coconuts at this point on a beach somewhere. Very jealous of those guys. And Pat kept telling me, he actually told me to quit and go take this idea to the broader audience. And I didn't really know how to take that. When your boss comes and tells you you should quit, that's usually not a good sign. But this ended up working out good for the Giants in particular, because it allowed us to maintain a 95, 96% renewal rate, because people had an outlet to get rid of tickets. They weren't eating tickets anymore. And lastly is my best buddy is Mario Aliotto, and I think he's been on here also. He's probably still one of my best friends. He taught me a lot about how to treat people, how to treat other employees, how to lead and still have fun. Taught me how to be a pro. We up until about 2-3 years ago, I guess COVID, we wore ties every day. He wore a shirt and tie minimum. If something special was going on, he'd wear a suit and tie, and he always called us the money days. You knew when he was going to get a contract signed, he'd have his special ties on. And I really consider myself lucky that I've had the opportunity to work with those guys, and I credit them with my career, and I truly love those guys, and I spend as much time as I can with them. The purpose of the meeting today was to sort of talk about my relationships with some of the ball players over the years. You talked about Willie Mays before. He was a funny guy. He always liked to come in and sit in my office and sign the check when he bought his season tickets. He had eight season tickets. He had a luxury suite. But he would come in and he would not talk to anyone else. He would come in and sit down and want to write a check. And I wish I made copies of some of them, but I couldn't afford to just keep them. They were cool checks because they had his picture on them, and then Willie Mays, and then he'd sign it. I think it was a Say Hey Kid in the corner. They were beautiful, but they were $25,000 checks if I'd have just eaten it. So I have a couple copies at home somewhere. But he was great. There was one day I was in here doing an interview, and there's this rattling around, and Carolyn says, "Well, Willie's here," and I was not even 15 minutes into this interview. So this poor woman Willie came in and sat and talked to her. And he's like, you're going to go home and tell your dad this story. I interrupted your interview. And she ended up getting the job, which we always joked about. Remember that time Willie Mays busted in on your interview? But he was pretty amazing. He was a pretty amazing character. It got much closer to McCovey. He came to every game for a long time. Willie Mays came to every game, but he was in the clubhouse. It was much easier to visit Willie McCovey because he was on the broadcast level and at every game, so I could always count. If he wasn't here, you immediately got nervous. Where is he? But I would go see him every homestand, pretty much like clockwork. But he was funny because he was. If I didn't go see him by the third game of the homestand, he'd call, asking if I was okay. You haven't been up, or are you sick? No, Willie, I'm just busy. I'll be up before the homestand's over. So then it got to the point where I just went up the first day of the homestand, so I wouldn't have to make him call every time looking for me. But he was really fun because he would bring in Lon Simmons and Joe Malfitano, and I would always just sort of sit in the back and listen to these guys tell stories. I wish I had taken better notes through the years because all the stories that I heard, probably Marty would love them, and I could probably write a good book, but I didn't keep a close enough record to what they were talking about. But I didn't say much, and they probably liked me because of that. I didn't jump in a lot. I asked questions once in a while, but those two alone, Lon Simmons and Joe Malfitano, were a couple of great baseball characters that were fun to talk to. In Orlando, I got the closest to Orlando. There was something about it. He wasn't a Hall of Famer when we met, so I got to go through the Hall of Fame process with him. I think in '99, January of '99, he got the call and we had a big dinner. And that was pretty special to be able to go to the Hall of Fame with him and be part of that and go to the parties with him. Baseball and Orlando really embraced me and allowed me to, I was able to go to the Otesaga Hotel, which is where all the actual Hall of Famers stay. And I got to go to a dinner one night with Jeff Idelson, and there was probably there's 300 people, and 60 of them were Hall of Famers. So what's that? One in five people were a Hall of Famer. So you're standing there trying to get a drink, and it's Hank Aaron, Yogi Berra, and Reggie Jackson all sort of blocking. I couldn't get a beer. It's like, come on, you guys, I'm trying to get a drink here. And it was really like my baseball cards had come alive as a kid. I mean, I still collect baseball cards, but it was a pretty great experience. And I always appreciated that Orlando sort of embraced a couple of us and took us along the way. He was also very close to Roberto Clemente, who I'm a big fan. And everyone always asks, well, I'm a Pirate fan. In '70, well, you guys I think this group will all remember that in '71, the Giants lost to the Pirates. So as a kid, I thought, okay, I'm going to root for the Pirates because I can justify the Giants losing if they lose to the world champs. So, and they did. The Pirates beat the Orioles. Great series, and it was so fun to watch Clemente, Stargell, Sanguian. So those guys, I started following those guys, and Clemente became my guy, along with Mays and McCovey. And then he died a year later. And so I got to see him play once at Candlestick, a pretty young age, but I do remember him roaming around right field and watching him. But then Orlando, all of a sudden I'm able to meet Vera Clemente, who was Roberto's widow. She came out for Orlando's statue dedication a couple years later, and Roberto's would be his granddaughter, lived with Orlando for a couple years and went to college in I think she was in Fairfield going to school. She might have gone to Sac State. So all of a sudden I have Roberto Clemente's son sitting in my office looking at all my Clemente stuff. It was just sort of surreal that we got so connected to the Clemente family, and Orlando sort of brought that. He was funny because he'd always bring me a gift, whether it was a photo. If he went to a Hall of Fame induction, he always brought me back a hat or a pin or something. My parents go on vacation, I get nothing. Orlando would be somewhere, and he'd come home with something special for me. And some of the pictures that he gave me over the years were from his personal collection. So I've one with him and Juan Marichal in a hotel room, and Juan's playing the bongo drums, and Orlando was playing like a ukulele or something. I mean, that's when players roomed together, and I think Orlando's roommate for a long time was Art Santo Domingo, who I also got to know through the years. And one great Orlando story, we were in New York together, and at the Grand Hyatt in the lobby watching Tim Lincecum throw a no-hitter. And Orlando liked to drink wine. So we were drinking wine throughout the game, and it was a great finish, and we're celebrating as if we were at the ballpark, and we had just done something. So big spender me, we need another bottle of wine. Not knowing, I knew Orlando had good taste, but we got the bottle of wine, and the bill came it was like $250 or $275 for this bottle of wine, which, as a young ticket guy, I was not quite prepared to pay, and I couldn't put it through my expenses. So it was a good learning experience to be careful with what you're going to pay for when you're with Orlando. A couple of other guys through the years that they're not Hall of Famers, but in my book they are, and one of them was Hank Sauer. Hank was around a lot. He actually came to my wedding. I'm divorced now, but maybe he was bad luck. But he came to my wedding, and he was a member of the Elks Club. And he drives up, and I'm standing out front. He drives up in this Cadillac and pulls up on the curb, hops, and just leaves his car there, hops up and goes into the Elks Club. And I'll never forget. I mean, it was funny that Hank actually came to the wedding. It was just really a fight. It was before I really knew Orlando. And he was just one of the first guys that I got to know, and that was 92, 93. But he was very close to Arthur, and him and Jimmy Davenport, Bobby Bonds, and Charlie Severo would play golf all the time. And they'd come by the office. So I'd get all four of them with Arthur. Again, so me sort of standing there, listening and learning about the stories and learning about baseball. And it really was cool because I had all these guys' baseball cards. And, Hank, I can still remember Hank Sauer's 58 card standing out in my head. But so I was fortunate. I got to take care of all these guys' tickets. And Mario and I always had a motto that if you had a statue, you got anything you wanted, whatever it was, we took care of you.
You just sent me your email.
And they, and trust me, there were some crazy requests that we had to come up with.
There's an echo going on.
There we go. It's okay, Gary, you're a patient man. But I mean, Orlando had some pretty outlandish requests, but over the years, tickets for other events and things like that, and I'd get a call, oh, Russ, I need 2 Super Bowl tickets, and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And we always figured it out. And we take care of obviously all the alumni, but if you had a statue, we joke that, we would do anything for you. You guys are all New York Giants fans. I'm glad Jamie's here, but there's only 3 people in the last 90 years that have had my job. And I'm really proud of that. That Pete Hoffman, who started and Jamie can check my dates, but I believe it was 1933. She wasn't there, but Peter Hoffman started in 33 with the New York Giants. He and Arthur came out here in 57. Arthur took over in 76, and I took over from Arthur in 93. So I don't think we're going to get to 100, but I thought 90 was pretty good. Maybe we get to 95 here. But I always think that that's pretty cool. And I have an office next door we built a conference room next door that I call the Polo Grounds, and it's got the pictures of all the Giants employees that I got to know that worked at the Polo Grounds, and Jamie's been in there and Marty's been in there. It's really a cool. I like it because it's really a cool place to sort of think back to the history of the team. Occasionally someone will ask me who all those people are, and I'll go in and sort of tell a little story about each of them. But over the years, I've got to know my guys that played in New York: McCormick, Willie Mays, Bobby Thompson, Eddie Prosu, and Jamie Rupert, obviously the queen of baseball from the Stoneham family. Funny story, my first autograph going to a baseball game in 1970, my neighbor was a construction worker, and he helped fill in Candlestick when they filled in the right field, that corner of the ballpark, so that the 49ers could move in. So he took me to a game, and we went down and we met this guy who was the groundskeeper, and it was Matty Schwab. So that day I got my glove autographed by Matty Schwab. And I went home and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. And I got one other player that Matty helped me get, and that was Willie Mays. So I came home with a glove with Willie Mays and Matty Schwab. And I wish I still had the glove, more so for the Matty autograph, because that's probably, the population of Matty Schwab autographs has got to be pretty small. But over the years, I got to meet Pete Hoffman's family. They brought lots of stories about Matty Schwab and about the Stonehams. And I didn't get to meet Pete Hoffman. He had passed away already, but the family came out in a luxury suite one time. And again, this Polo Grounds, if any of you guys, Norm, you haven't been in there yet. I'm going to need to take you into our Polo Grounds conference room.
I'd love it.
But that's, I could continue on and now about where we are today, but I figured we'd focus on the New York Giants guys. But obviously today, the Dave Draveckis and the Will Clarks have become amazing friends. It's great people. Again, it's like having my baseball cards walking around the office. But those are the guys I love. I mean, the current players I don't have as much interaction with. I worked a lot with Tom O'Doul on the Lefty O'Doul. We used to have a great foundation that Marty helped us get going, and the Uncle Abe Award that Marty brought in. I've just had a lot of fun doing this job. And Pat Gallagher always said, we're in the fun business, right? And sometimes it's hard. If you go into Detroit with 800 tickets and you got to distribute them for a World Series game. Before we had digital ticketing, faced a lot of challenges, but had a lot of fun.
Great, Russ, great stories. I got to tell you, just wonderful. We're going to open it up for questions. I got a question about the players that you know, and I also have a couple about your job. How was it in 2024? If you remember, I took a picture of you kind of crying at Rickwood Field, with Willie Mays had, when the Giants played the Cardinals. And then also, if you could just tell us about your trip to the CEPEDA tribute when you were, flying all over the country.
Yeah, starting with Rickwood, that was a hard week in general. Obviously, it was going to be an emotional trip, and the whole thing started when I watched the Willie Mays documentary on HBO, and I saw that he had played at Rickwood and spent a lot of time there. And as I said earlier, I'm on the scheduling committee, so I knew, I had heard that baseball was trying to do something at Rickwood, and so the next day I came in and said, there's no way that they can have that game and not include the Giants. The Giants have to play in that game. First of all, hoping that Willie would be able to go somehow. If I had to drive him in a limo, we have to get him there. So we ended up getting the game. Who did we play? We played the Cardinals. So we were losing a road game, and going to play at Rickwood. And obviously I'm a historian. I come to these things and listen to what everybody's got to talk about of the old players. So there's a part of me that wanted to be there, had to be there, hoping that Willie Mays would be there. It turned out to be an owner's trip, so we took the owners to Chicago I go with the owners to take care of tickets. We're in Chicago, and I was in the suite, and Larry Bear walked in, and I knew something was wrong. He goes, I gotta talk to you and Jack. And I could tell that something bad happened. And he came in and told us that Willie had passed, and it was tough. That was a very emotional time. I had to call a couple people. We sort of divided and conquered, and Larry made some calls, and I called Pat Gallagher and Orlando was my other call. Both very, very difficult calls, and Orlando was inconsolable. And who knew that 10 days later, Orlando would pass. It was a pretty bad week. But being at Rickwood, and I mean, there's something special about that place. When you walk in and walk around, and you feel baseball. And I thought Major League Baseball did a great job with the decorations and the pregame ceremony, and Michael Mays saying, it's the only way that his dad could be there, was passing away on Monday or Tuesday and being there. By the time we played on, I think it was a Thursday. I mean, it wasn't very long. So that was pretty emotional for me. And your picture, and they caught me on TV at one point. But I think if anybody was out there, you would have felt the same thing. Gary, what was your second?
I remember you telling me.
Yeah. So 10 days later, a couple people that are here. So we went to Orlando's ceremony, and very quickly they had a service in Walnut Creek. So we went, and oddly, and I drove Murph up, and I don't know if Murph has done this show, but he's somebody you've got to get on there, because the hour up and back each way with Murph was unbelievable. I mean, the stories that he tells, and all the guys that I remember, and the Amalfitanos and those kind of guys, the stories that he's got are phenomenal. But we had Orlando's service, the celebration of life, and it was crazy because I felt like I was at a wedding where I knew everybody. I was like the cousin or the nephew that really knew everybody, and it was great. It was unfortunate that that's what it took for all of us to get together. But then I was fortunate enough to also go to the ceremony in Puerto Rico, which was also very special because the Clementis were there, and I was able to spend time with Christina Clementi, Roberto's granddaughter, and a lot of old players. For us, it was Juan and Tony Perez were the two that I really knew. There were a couple other that played in Puerto Rican baseball that were famous. A couple basketball player. But it was great to meet Tony. I hadn't met Tony Perez. I tried to get him to come out so we did it was kind of a trifecta for Orlando. We did a third ceremony here at the ballpark in September of that year on Roberto Clemente Day. And I tried to get Tony Perez to come out, and Eduardo Perez on Sunday Night Baseball was Orlando's godson. So it just was a great tie-in to bring those two out. They couldn't make it. It was a Sunday Night Baseball that was not in San Francisco. I think it was in LA. But we ended up with another friend of Orlando, which was Tony Oliva, who I had never met, who was pretty much my new Orlando. He talked to me the whole day. And it was a pretty period of time to be able to spend the day with him and Juan, spend a lot of time, the two of them spend time together, have some great pictures. And I will say when I went to Tony Oliva, I met him at the Via. I'd only talked to his daughter by phone. So I went to across the street, the Hotel Via. We were all meeting in the lobby. I see him there as I walk in. I go over and talk to him and I say, "Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you giving a speech today." And he looks at me square in the eye and says, "Oh, I'm not speaking today, am I?" And my heart went right to my shoes and I panicked. And so no, well, I was hoping that you were. I mean, this is why we wanted you here. We wanted one of Orlando's friends to talk about him. So he said, "No, I'm not talking." And so I text his daughter, and his daughter hadn't told him that he was going to speak, that she wanted to surprise him. Don't ever surprise me in front of 40,000 people. It was hard enough to do this, the 30, what are we? Hey, we're up to 37. We got a good count tonight.
Absolutely.
But she didn't want to tell him because he wouldn't have come. So he did it. He did a fantastic job because he did speak from the heart. It was an amazing speech, but that was one of those times that, and I thought he was, I go, "You're just like Orlando. You're playing with me." Because Orlando would have done the same thing. He was a jokester. And I could, I go, "God, I even said that to him. I go, "You're just like Orlando." "No, I'm not speaking." Oh, shit. What am I going to do now? I panicked, and then it was really fun because we came back over here and Mario Alioto and Pat Gallagher and I got to speak to the crowd about Orlando. And it was pregame. It was only probably 20,000 people in here. I wasn't as nervous, but that was a lot of fun.
That's great. All right. I have one question for you regarding your job now. Actually, I have many, but I'm only going to ask one. So you worked since 1989, and despite what Norm says, you probably worked in the worst ballpark in baseball, And then all of a sudden in 2000, you're working in this glorious stadium, and for years, sellouts, continual. What was that? Talk to us about that, going from like Candlestick to Pac Bell at the time.
Well, it was night and day. I mean, Candlestick, yeah, Norm waxes poetic, but it was a dump. I mean, in 89 or 90, one of my jobs was customer service, and people would come into the lobby and say, "There's water dripping on me in my seats. Can you move me?" And it wasn't water. It was a sewer pipe. And so not only did I move him, I had to buy him a jacket or a new shirt. It was a bad play. I mean, like they say, it was so cold, bitter cold, tough place to work, tough place to sell tickets. But when the team played well, in 1993, I mean, we drew 2.6 million. We sold 2.6 million tickets. So the fan base embraced it, somehow could get through the weather was only a problem when we were losing. When we were winning, the fans came in droves. So the toughest part was 94 after the strike and trying to we were selling replacement player baseball for a period of time. And there were people that were just boycotted baseball. Even in 96, 97, I would talk to customers that just were not going to come back. And it really took this new ballpark to get people to re-energize with the Giants. And yeah, we had a great run. I like to think that with the exchange program and the way we set up pricing to what the market, in the old days, we'd set a price in October and you were stuck with that all the way through the next season. Once we became more nimble with pricing, we were able to charge the price that customers wanted to pay. And I think that helped drive ticket sales here too. And then the team got better. So, in 2010, we started a sellout streak, 530 games from 2010 till 2017, I think. Which, I mean, that's 8.5 seasons. I mean, it still amazes me.
That's great. Now, lastly, for 2026, do you have a projection, or you got to wait till after the winter meetings to see who they acquire and stuff like that?
Yeah, I have no idea on the baseball side. I have my projection on tickets. I'd like to get back to 3 million. You know, we did 2.9 and some change last 2.9, 2.5. So, you know, I'd like to get back to, you know, from my standpoint, I'd like to get back to 3 million.
Russ,
Don't say that because then Larry's going to say it's 3 million, but in my head, it's 3 million.
Russ, thanks so much. Steve, you're up.
Thanks so much for coming on. Your presentation was great. You're obviously now one of the legendary employees of the Giants. Just a couple of comments and then one question. Since you're a historian, I'm not sure if you know, although you probably do, that Hank Sauer was the MVP of the National League in 1952, and the American League MVP of 1952 is still alive. I believe he's the oldest living player. Marty Lurie can correct me if I'm wrong, and that's
Right.
Bobby Shantz.
Hmm.
So you got Bobby Shantz in the American League and your buddy Hank Sauer in the National League.
Wow.
Does the name Jeff Tanzer ring a bell?
Yeah. Why do I know that name?
My cousin's son. Has a similar job to you with the Rays.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know Jeff. Yeah.
You do know that. Okay. McCovey's
Yeah. I remember there
restaurant.
was a period of time where we were moving to Florida.
That's right.
I forgot to talk about that, but thank God that didn't happen.
That's right.
Jeff and I would have been arguing over the job.
McCovey's restaurant, I was probably there 6, 8 times. Wonderful place when it was opening. I did have the opportunity to meet him a couple of times during spring training since I'm living in Arizona. But Orlando Cepeda, I was a school teacher and I was invited to, it was a political luncheon. My principal comes to me and says, "You want to have lunch with Orlando Cepeda?" I said, "What, are you kidding?" He says, "No." He said, "It's his favorite restaurant in the Bronx called Pasta Pasta on Williamsbridge Road." And he loved that restaurant. And anytime I would run into him, whether it was at a spring training game or with my group in Cooperstown, I'd always yell out "Pasta Pasta," and he recognized the face with the restaurant.
Is it still there?
It is still there.
Oh boy.
It's in the
Gary,
Pelham
we got to
Parkway
check it out.
Pelham Parkway section of the Bronx in a small little strip mall. I'm looking over your right shoulder there, and you got Buster Posey hanging up. And I guess the feeling is he's going to get into the Hall in 2027. He is well aware of this group. Reason being, when the Giants won the 3 World Series, twice, I think it was twice. The third time was Panic, or Posey twice, Panic in the middle.
Posey once.
Only
Willie Mays was solo in 2013 after 2012.
Okay.
Buster was
Panic
first,
there.
right?
When I was there, Panic was there, right?
Yes.
2014. Well, Posey's aware of this group, New York Giants Preservation Society. You know, it's a ways off. It's a long way off. But I would, and a group from here is going to be going. There's no question. I'm looking to go for my 20th Hall of Fame weekend, which that would be. We would love to have some kind of a connection with him during that weekend. I mean, it's, you know, miles away, but it's certainly something to think about. Gary, you're shaking your head. You don't think that can happen? We can make it happen. Trust me.
Steve, you're one of the few people who said he wasn't going to get in on the first ballot. You're not invited.
I'm on my own. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The last thing is, you're talking about the 3 million. You're opening up finally at home with the Yankees. So definitely you're going to have 3 sellouts there. Do you think of anything special that would be for sale that day, like they did in New York? They had the Giants and the Yankees on a hat. I don't know if that's in your
Yeah,
domain.
they'll do hats and pins and T-shirts, but I actually don't like opening at home. I prefer to open on the road just so we can have build up to what's happening on opening day. Typically we'll be on the road for 6 games. You got 6 TV games that are high ratings because the season's just starting, and it really helps build up ticket sales for opening day and opening weekend.
So you've been
Yeah,
happy
we'll
for a
sell
long
out the
time,
Yankees,
because
but I'd rather play the Yankees. I
middle
wish
of
we
the
were playing the
season.
Yankees in June.
Well, it'll sell out
Because
no
opening
matter
day
what.
will sell out.
But you've been happy for the last number of years because they haven't
Yeah,
opened it home.
I'm always ask Jamie. I'm always happy.
Well,
Did
thank you
Jamie
so much.
leave? Now I'm mad.
Thank you
Jamie's
so
still
much.
here.
Storm and Norman, you're up.
Well, you took away one of my questions,
Oh.
but I have just in my own self-defense, excuse me, I have to say that, Russ, you were not born when Candlestick was the most beautiful ballpark in baseball.
That's true.
And so,
Right.
so I still defend Candlestick Park, and I still will wax poetic. I was going to ask about opening day being the first game of the season this year, but we've already discussed that, so I can move on from that. But I want to ask you about CEPEDA. Orlando was a spiritual man. He wanted to know about different religions, and just would talk to anybody about that if he thought he can get more knowledge. And he also loved music. I was wondering if you ever discussed spirituality with him, or went to hear music with him, or just had heard stories from him that you'd care to share.
Yeah, it was interesting. You really couldn't call him between 9:30 and 11 every morning because he was chanting. And so you would just, if you did, you just went to voicemail. He would, I want to say he's very religious about it, but he never met. I mean, like some people work out every day. That's how he worked out. He worked out his spirituality. And obviously he was a Buddha. He worked with a lot of people within that religion where he helped them along the way. He was, once I really learned about this more after he had passed, how many people he helped, financially, spiritually. He was a pretty incredible guy. As far as music goes, if you left him a voicemail, it was, "Hey, this is Orlando. Leave a message, good music." And there'd always be some music on in the background. And it was always from Rick Swig. And so a lot of times it would be Rick and I and Orlando, and they would talk about music and people that they knew. I'm not as big into, I can't name a salsa band, but certainly Rick and Orlando could. I will say that I do love the music. I just don't know much about it. I like listening to it, but and he would give me CDs all the time, and it was just, Puerto Rican music's very happy, and it's fun.
All right, thanks, Russ.
Thanks, Norm. Mr. Paul, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Russ. That was terrific. My question is really about tickets. Is there, in terms of your experience, which was the most famous ticket, or maybe the oddest request you ever had for tickets?
Well, when we're in the World Series, I hear from a lot of people that I haven't heard from in a very long time.
Yeah.
And it was there was a guy, a local radio guy that had been off the air for many years, but he was the Lobster. His radio name was the Lobster. And Brad knows. Look out, everybody! There's a lobster loose. And he was sort of a nutty guy, but he called me like we were best friends and said, "Well, I need tickets to Game 5 of the World Series or something." And he was like, "Well, I'm not sure. Tell me again who you are." Well, and he gave me his regular name, and then he says, "Well, it's me, the Lobster." Like I'm supposed to know who this guy is, and my friends still joke that I shared that with them, and they thought the guy was pretty nuts. But I get a lot of Super Bowl requests, which are that's probably the hardest ticket to get at face value. Nobody wants to pay the market. So can you get me Super Bowl tickets at face value? Well, that's like almost impossible because they have so many travel deals and they're hard to get. But Paul, I have a question for you. Is that a penguin on your shirt?
No. This is Milton Landing Park. It's a canoe.
I thought you were a Pittsburgh Penguin fan.
No, I'm not. I'm not a big really big hockey fan, even though I grew up in New England. But the only team I can shout out to is UMass, where I went to school when they won the Frozen Four a couple of years ago.
Nice.
But thanks, Russ. Thank you.
That's probably a tough ticket too.
Yeah, I know.
Would be tough.
Yep.
Thanks, Paul. Mr. Jim Folkers, you are up.
Thanks, Gary. Hey, Russ, thanks for taking the time to spend with us. Great stories. Loved hearing them. I wanted to know if you could comment on when you implemented the secondary ticket process, like what kind of challenges you faced, and did you get like pushback from management or the owners in terms of, trying to do that?
Um, the pushback came from my counterparts around the league. Before I did, I go to they call it intakes. I go to this conference every year, and I use some of those. There's baseball. It's a lot, it's not mostly sports. It's about half sports, half arts. So I usually try to get the sports people together to bring up topics and try to share ideas. And when I brought the secondary market, they thought I was crazy. Well, why do you want to sell a ticket a second time? Why on earth would you take tickets back? And in theory, we weren't really taking them back. The mechanism was really an exchange. The sale wouldn't take place until we had a buyer on the other side. So someone who couldn't use their ticket on a particular night, Brad Mangian uses the system, I'm sure, quite a bit. But you got to buy 81 games, and it's just a lot of games. So Brad splits his tickets. That gives him 40 tickets, and Brad maybe can go to 20 games. So those other 20 games, he has to have an easy to use mechanism to get rid of those. And some people made money at it. Some people just wanted to get their ticket price back. But we were exchanging 375,000 tickets a year at Candlestick. So we had to have some way. We knew we were going to sell out the first year, but you don't want people at the end of the year to have 40 games in their drawer that they didn't use. So figuring out a mechanism to do that was all electronic, so that you weren't mailing tickets back and forth. I mean, it was, looking back now, I mean, that's 20 years ago. It was a pretty sophisticated, 25 years ago. It was pretty sophisticated for where we were. I mean, we didn't even have barcodes on tickets yet. We started the barcodes in 2000, which enabled the whole secondary market. You could turn it now you could turn a ticket off and on. And that's where I was saying Arthur sort of taught me that there's a life of a ticket. And you could never turn a ticket off. In the old days, you couldn't turn a ticket off because you couldn't control it at the gate. Every ticket looked the same. A printed ticket all looked the same, but with the barcode. So the negativity we got, I think, was from people who thought they didn't know that it was a safe and secure way to do it. So, we spent the first couple of years trying to explain that this is a safe way to sell tickets. You're not going out we're doing the work for you. You're not going to the parking lot to go meet somebody in a windowless van to exchange cash and get your tickets,
Thank you, Jim. Brad, you were up. Nice to see you.
Great to be here. Russ, awesome presentation. Could listen to you tell stories forever. I got a couple quick questions. I want to go back to the schedule. I didn't realize how involved you were in the scheduling, and obviously things are different with the A's out of town. For years and years and years, Oakland, San Francisco always dovetailed, rarely overlapped. A's always open at home. You guys always open on the road. Is one of the main reasons possibly that you guys are opening at home this year, the schedule's goofy because there's no Oakland?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with that. I mean, we typically request to open on the road.
Right.
For
You
opening
haven't.
day.
I can't remember the last time you opened at home. It's been forever.
Yeah, I can't either. We have had. Well, we opened at home in 21, but it was after a lockout, maybe in 22, but it was because we whacked the first week of the season. So opening day
That was a weird. That was. I remember.
That was weird.
That was a whole weird thing. Yeah.
But so about a year out from when the schedule actually gets distributed, we fill out a survey of, do we want to be home on certain holidays? Do we want to open on the road, close at home, close on the road? You have a number of sort of variables that you can control. So for years, we said we want to open on the road, and the A's would say we want to open at home. So it forced the computer to look at those requests. And now I think there's an overwhelming push to get teams to open on the West Coast because of the weather.
Right.
It could be snowing in Colorado or Cleveland,
Sure.
And now we're opening earlier and earlier. And I'm sure you've noticed we're the only game on Wednesday.
Well, that's the whole Netflix
Yeah,
thing.
that'll be a huge.
Right.
But I think that's pretty cool. I mean, for the
Right.
Giants brand to be
Right,
playing the
it'll be
Yankees
big.
on national TV, that we're the only game.
Right. And
It'll
then
be
one
fun.
more quick thing. Can you talk about your great friendship with Dusty, and when was it when you guys really first met and got tight? Because I love
Well,
your
it's probably
friendship with Dusty.
the '93 season because Arthur had retired at the beginning of '93. The new ownership group took over. Dusty was a coach and up until '92, and all of a sudden he's the manager in '93. So we crossed paths at a couple dinners, and he was really interesting. I mean, even our holiday party, it was probably '94, the holiday party after the '93 season. I mean, he won manager of the year, but we sat at the same table, and he was peppering me with like business questions. How's this budget work? What happens if you go over budget? Things that he's never thought about. But now as a manager, he had to keep an eye on the clubhouse budget and player payroll. At the time, that would have been Bob Quinn Sr. was the GM at that point. But Dusty's a great friend. I love Dusty. He's someone I call him the wise owl. He always says the right thing. He's so great. He'll come in here and he'll bring grapes, right? It'll be a Ziploc bag of grapes with my name on it. He's got a little cooler he drags around, and he does that with grapes, strawberries, and occasionally it'll be salmon. I mean, it's the guy's incredible.
Thanks, Russ.
Thank you, Brett. Russ, how are you for time? We got about 6 more people with their hands up. We good?
Yep. Well, I'm okay.
Perfect. Greg, you're up.
Hi.
Hi,
I
Greg.
just wanted to say that I wanted to thank you for something you did on opening day weekend of 1990, where you switched my season tickets for me, and I happened to get seats right next to a guy by the name of Norm Coleman.
That was a good move, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a good move. We've had a long relationship going to a lot of games over the last 35 years. And I really appreciate the help you gave me that first weekend of your permanent status with the Giants, I guess.
So maybe you remembered that was a weekend. Did we open on Friday night? Was the 90 opening day a night game?
I don't think so, but I couldn't remember. I can't remember.
I was talking to somebody today because we had it was crazy. I mean, the Candlestick had its challenges. I remember working that day, and the ticket office was separate from the executive office, and we were going back and forth across a walkway, and there was a sniper up on the hill. It was a kid with a BB gun, but shooting BBs into the ballpark, and it was hitting on the mezzanine, the windows of the executive office on the mezzanine level. And so I was talking to somebody about that today, and I really thought that was a night game. But
it could have been. I thought they switched to going day games in the mid 80s because they did have opening night for a while, but I thought in the mid 80s they went back to day games. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
7:35 p.m.
Was it? Okay. So that was an early morning sniper. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe, and you forget stuff. Maybe it was the next night, the Friday night game, or I can't. I feel like we opened on Friday though. I don't know. I got to look at that. Norm, what was the day of the week?
1 second. I got my little thing here.
I'm surprised you have to look it up. It's embarrassing.
Game 1, it was a Friday.
Okay.
You were correct.
Yeah, I thought it was a weekend.
Oh, but it says here this would have been game number 4 if not for the strike.
Right, that's right. There was a lockout or strike, the spring training of 90, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Greg. Renee, you're up.
Russ, thank you for being here. I love your presentation. A couple of questions were already asked, but I love your whole presentation, your knowledge of obviously of what you do, your history of what you do, and then your love for it, not love for it, your passion for it. I really enjoyed it so much. And the fact that you bring that a part of in your job and the conference room with the Polo Grounds employees, fantastic. Fantastic. You
Thank you.
are a fantastic person. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Renee.
And come
Appreciate
back
it.
again, please.
Thanks for having me. I'll be back, but I'll be on the other side. I'll be asking questions.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Mars.
Oh, hi, Russ.
Hi, Marsh.
Thank you for joining us. So I have a comment and then a couple of questions. Hank Sauer, you mentioned, and so did Steve Rothschild. Well, on my 10th birthday, September 8th, 1957, my pop took me, my two cousins, and my brother in the upper deck of the Polo Grounds. And Dodgers took a 1-0 lead in the first inning, or the second inning. And then Mays and Jablonski hit consecutive triples. And Hank Sauer hit a 2-run homer, and the lead held up, and the Giants won 3-2. It was the last Giant-Dodger game played in New York. And from where we were sitting in the upper deck, just on the foul side of the right field pole, that indelible image of Sauer's home run, because, in a horseshoe-shaped ballpark, we watched that ball sail into the upper deck in left field.
Wow.
So that's my memory of Hank Sauer.
He could hit. He could hit.
Right. Now, the questions I have for you, well, was Mays paid for tickets?
He did.
That was a question.
Not all of them, but some of them.
And the other one is about the tiered pricing, which I never really liked. But, as a charter seat license holder, we had, one price for the whole season. But after that, when I sold my license, because I didn't want to go to night games anymore, a year before the pandemic, I never liked the idea of tier pricing. I miss actually have a ticket in my hand because I have all the tickets from the Giants' 3 World Series and playoff games in a scrapbook. Did you institute the tiered pricing?
Yes.
Is that advantageous financially for the league or the ball
Yeah,
club?
and I think it helps customers too. Not all games are equal. So, and I'll throw out the Padres. Let's talk about the Padres sort of old. I mean, I know they're hotter now, but, the Padres or let's say the Rockies on a Monday night, the value of that ticket is not nearly as good as a Dodger Sunday. So we came up with 5 levels. Well, actually, yeah, 5. Single, double, triple, home run, and grand slam. And a grand slam is opening day, and a single might be Rockies Tuesday night. The triple might be the Mets on a Friday. So we tried to tier them so that, and then we spread the money because as a season ticket holder, if you sold your Rockies tickets and in the old days, we just spread it across all games. So if you paid $810, it was $10 for every ticket. But that's not right because it's not every game is the same. So that $10 ticket against the Rockies would be overpriced, and against the Dodgers would be underpriced. So we tried to set the market so that season ticket members had a sort of a guideline on what they should be asking for those tickets.
Well, the thing is, now that I sold my license to a guy that bought half of my tickets once my original season ticket partner passed away, now I only go to the single games because the doubles, especially the triples and the home runs, are too pricey for me being retired.
So it's advantageous because if we priced everything the same, you wouldn't be able to go to any games, right?
Well, if it was all like when I first bought my ticket before tiered pricing, it was all $23 a ticket in the year 2000.
Right. No, I remember that.
And now it's like triple that.
Well, but that's a different story. But when you had the $23 ticket, some games were worth 15 and some were worth 33. But you probably knew that in your head if you were trying to sell them. But I mean, if you just looked at the ticket price, if you took the average ticket price, that's not a good depiction of what that ticket's really worth.
Well, after the 3 championships and the team started to falter, I took a bath on a lot of tickets before you could trade them in for another game.
Yeah,
So
you're not alone. We not every year is a World Series year. We've had some down years that are struggles in 08, 09, 7, some tough years.
Oh, I remember. But thank you very much, Russ.
Thank you, Morris.
Mars, are you in San Francisco?
Yes, I
Oh,
am.
you're here.
But I
Okay.
was born in New York City and was only about 3 miles from the Polo Grounds. We could walk there.
For some reason, I thought you were still in New York.
Well, maybe because of I have a little bit of the accent left, I guess.
Little.
I think he's better off being in San Francisco. So
Jerry likes the distance.
Larry Hayes from Giant Enterprise.
Larry,
good to see
all
you.
right.
Hello there, Russ. Thank
Hi,
you.
Larry.
Fantastic presentation. You've got a gift of gab and very
Yeah.
interesting material. Thank you very, very much. You had mentioned you had collected baseball cards. Mars has collected ticket stubs. I have a very, very good friend who was heartbroken when the Giants went to fully electronic tickets.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your involvement in the creation of the physical tickets. Artwork, photographs. Did you go to Brad and steal some of his photos? How did you work it all out?
You know, that used to be one of the funnest parts of the job. As a baseball card collector, I always felt like we were sort of designing our own cards. In fact, one year we had tickets, 81 tickets, where if you tore the top and the bottom, you got a baseball card out of it. And I don't remember if it was, I think Topps didn't sponsor it, but I kept pushing it. This ought to be a Topps product. And that was one of the funnest creative times. They've taken that away from us. But I mean, one of the hardest parts was figuring out the top 81 players, you know, who you didn't want to leave anyone out. And then it got a little easier as we got here and started doing the sheets of 5, and you just take the 5 best players, and one was always Barry, right? That was pretty easy for a long time, and he'd be on the cover. But we had a lot of fun, and we got a lot of creativity through the years. Certain anniversaries would hit, and you know, and the crazy thing in those days when you were printing tickets, you know, we had to be done with the layout by certainly before Christmas. And they would be printing the blank stock, and then they would imprint it with seat and price information, you know, in January. There you go. That's it. That's the winner. Those are cool.
They are cool. And
I miss it. That was 08. That's great.
It's just one of those things that you know, the progression of tickets, as in everything in this world, everything seems to be shifting over to electronic format. We lose a little bit of that physical love that we had before. But again, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for coming.
Steve, you want to ask a quick question before Jim wraps it up?
I do. I mentioned the photo you had over your right shoulder before in the Hall of Fame business and us getting together. You know, Gary's been terrific. I mean, he's had people on here, and you very well know that, Russ. He had the 2 Thompson girls here several weeks back, and next year is going to be 75 years since the shot heard around the world. And it's probably not your job, but you're the one facing us now. Wouldn't it be great to have them maybe throw out a first pitch, or on the day they do that, have a shirt for sale, something to honor the past of Bobby Thompson?
Yeah, fortunately, Gary called me right after you guys had them on.
I didn't know.
And said the same thing. So I know they were here at the World Series in 12 or 14. But I've sent that note to our marketing person that I think we ought to try to bring them in and do something. I mean, they've done the first pitch before. You know, it might be something different. It could be the same. But involving them in the anniversary, I think, is really important.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Yeah, thanks.
Mr. Mully.
Thank you, Gary. Russ, thank you. Really enjoyed it. Love the full stadium. Love the Orange Fridays. Love when the house is packed. Don't love when the Dodger fans take over the stadium.
Yeah,
What do you do about that?
we've got to start winning.
Yeah.
We got to beat them, and
So
because
what's
they get
happening?
louder when
it
they're winning.
the Giant fans selling the tickets in the third market? Or-
Yeah, I mean, you can't tell when you're selling online. It's hard to tell. You can't really. I mean, you can control it with zip. Some teams will control it with zip codes, and if you're not in the zip code, the Nationals do it all the time. They don't want Orioles fans coming or whoever they're. I think it was Philly. Maybe it was Phillies. They didn't want Philly fans buying tickets when Bryce Harper went to Philly, and it's silly. It's the way to take over the stadium is to win again. And once we do that, it'll come back.
So it's Giant season ticket holders not showing up and selling it to higher prices to the Dodger fans.
Yeah, I mean, to their credit, they're selling it above certainly what we marketed them. The season ticket price, they're probably getting double what the season ticket holder was, and so they're making money on the deal, which helps them buy more tickets and continue being season ticket holders. Happens a lot during the postseason. I know season ticket holders will sell the first 2 games of a postseason to cover their costs of the season tickets. Happens a lot.
All right, let's get rid of those
but
Dodger
online,
fans.
you can't
Let's
really
win.
tell. You can't say. Yeah, I mean, look, we have a group. It's called Pantone, whatever the Dodger blue is. They have a Pantone, and they buy 1,000 bleacher tickets for the Saturday Dodger game. And I mean, it started out as fun, and they are probably the nicest people. I know Dodger fans can be a pain, but these guys, they're the nicest people. And they take a bus up, they come up in the morning, they go to the game, and then they go back home.
It really does affect the atmosphere, though. It when they take over the stadium.
We'll start winning again, and all that'll go away.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that. Thanks for.
We just have to start winning again, which is tough when you're playing the National League All-Star team.
Yeah.
Russ, as you could tell, and you've been watching some, this is a New York group, but we're 95% of us are rooting for the Giants in San Francisco. So I got one last question for you. I know you're this great historian. Should we expect to see you in Cooperstown for Posey, Dusty Baker, Bruce Bochy?
I would be excited to go to all 3.
And I got one more for you. I don't know if you liked him or not, or your dealings with him. I just don't understand how Jeff Kent is not.
Yeah, I would love to see that too.
Okay, so hopefully we will see.
I would let them all in. There's another you didn't mention, but
yeah. Well,
He's now. He's on the ballot.
As deserving as he is, to just I don't know. So, and I loved his father. He was like my first real baseball hero when I was 8 years old. Bobby Bonds was great.
Right.
Let's all give it up for Russ Stanley. Russ,
right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thanks
for
coming.
us a great entertainment evening of entertainment tonight. I will hang around. Next meeting will be in 2 weeks with Steve Summers again. Everybody have a healthy and happy Thanksgiving, and remember those less fortunate if you could give them a hand. And that's what we're going to do with our holiday party, give some money back to some deserving groups. So have a great night, everybody, and be well. Russ, thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey,
Thank you,
Russ.
Good to see you.
Russ.
Happy birthday, Russ.
Thank you.